Hey everyone, it's Cassie. Welcome back for another Pearblossom Press video. Today we are making a dumpster fire of a card for a couple reasons, but let's talk about what we're using. I have the Easy Light. You guys know I love these. They're great because they have 3 lights on them. This is a 5-pack and it's fabulous. We're also going to be using the translucent color vellum. So this is a pack of all different colors of vellum. I really love this stuff. It's fabulous. We're using the brick stencil from Missing Stamps and the Ins and Outs Hollywood stencil. And then I have this really cute stamp set called Dumpster Fire. I've used it once before already, but it's just so fun. A lot of great sentiments and some great images. It does have matching dies, but we're not going to be using those today. Such a cute set. So I was very excited as soon as I saw the dumpster fire. I knew I had to light it up. So yeah, we're going to be doing that. I'm also using some watercolor pencils. I've got set 2, and then I have some distress sprays in Fired Brick and Aged Mahogany. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a piece of watercolor cardstock. By the time I cut this down, it's going to end up being 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. So it'll be the full front of an A2 size card. And so I need to, at least in my mind, I realized I thought I needed to stamp first, just in case I messed up that background. So I'm just kind of marking with a pencil where this stencil goes. And then I am going to stick it inside my MISTI, and I'll grab the image and the sentiment that I'm going to use, because I wanted this to be, I say one layer, at least the panel is one layer. Obviously it's not, because it's going to be a light up card, but the panel itself is one layer. So I've centered those up in there. I used an anti-static powder tool, and then I am going to ink this up using some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. It's a black pigment ink, perfect for watercoloring, and it also stays damp for a little bit. So we're going to stamp it a couple times just to make sure I have a good impression, and then we're going to coat that with some clear embossing powder. And when I heat this up, it'll go back to being a dark black, but right now it just looks a little subdued. So that's how you'll know that your embossing powder is heated up. It will go from that color to darker. So you can see it happen right before your eyes. It's the magic of embossing, right? So I'm heating that up entirely. And then we can move on to stamping that image a couple more times. Now, the reason I want to stamp this a couple more times is because I want there to be the flame, and I want that on that colored vellum. So I've got a couple chunks of vellum. I've got like a yellow gold one, and I also have a red one. And we're going to emboss these two. The reason we have to do that is because this is vellum, and by stamping on this, that color isn't going to soak into the paper, so it'll just kind of stay wet. So we are covering that with our embossing powder once again, and we'll do the same thing with the gold. And we did use our anti-static powder tool, as you saw. And then we're just going to heat set that. Now this is vellum, so it will heat very quickly. If you keep it in one place too long, it will burn your paper, so be careful of that. So we're just going to heat that through. And then we'll trim down the red one. Now I go a little crazy with this yellow one. I'm actually cutting around the second largest flame. So yeah, this is embossed, but we're cutting around that embossed line. I want this to be layered up a couple times. I wanted there to be some dimension to the fire. I didn't just want it to be red, and I didn't just want it to be gold, because there are 3 layers. I could have gone even crazier and added another layer of vellum, but I thought it might be a bit much. So we're doing just those 2 layers. Now before I do any coloring, like I said, I didn't want to mess up my background, but I wanted to have it stamped, and so I have put down the mask from that Ins and Outs Hollywood, and then I put the brick stencil right over the top. Put this in my makeshift splatter box that I've sprayed. That first was Fired Brick, and then we're bringing in that Aged Mahogany, which is just a deeper red. And I got to be really careful. I don't want to smudge this, so I'm grabbing my reverse tweezers to pick that up, and I still end up moving it a little bit. So it's okay. It doesn't end up hurting the background, but yeah, it smudges a little. It will become a dumpster fire here in a little bit. You will see what I'm talking about. So I dried that. I thought I dried that so completely. Maybe these reds are a little bit still reactive with your fingers. I'm not sure, but you'll see here in a little bit, I end up transferring some of that red to the inside of the card, which really bothers me, but it is what it is. Now I've brought in set 2 from the watercolor pencils. These are the Distress watercolor pencils, and I'm coloring directly onto the watercolor paper. And if you don't mind the pencil lines, this is a great way to go. So I'm bringing in several colors and just coloring around, and then I'm going to bring in my water brush, and we're going to blend some of that color down. And you could definitely see the pencil lines, like I said. As long as that doesn't bother you, this is a great way to do your watercoloring with that. So I'm kind of grounding my piece, and then I'm going to wipe it off in between and drag that color down. And with any sort of watercolor, it does work best in layers. So I'm going to come back in over the top of these in a little bit because I like that depth to the color. I will say the pencil lines sort of bother me a bit on the can itself on our dumpster, but I'm going to fix that just a little bit here once I bring the pencil back in. So we'll blend that down at the bottom also. And here's where I decide I'm going to bring in my pencils, and I'm going to, this is probably my favorite way to color with these, is to take my watercolor brush directly to the pencil and grab that color. And then I don't get those pencil lines, and I'm just watercoloring with these. But there's several ways to do this, and this is just one of them. You kind of find what you like, mix and match, do your thing. And then I bring back in that darker blue. I believe that's prize ribbon. That's the one in set 2. Yeah, I have the colors up on the upper left-hand side. You can see which colors are what. I do decide to bring in a black, and now the black and the white are in their own little set. It's just a set of 2 watercolor pencils. And so I'll bring in the black just for those wheels at the bottom. But we're about done with our coloring. And there we go. So far, everything looks good. I didn't transfer too much color onto the background. That's going to come here in a second after everything is nice and dry. And I decide to do some crazy cutting. So we're going to heat set that, make sure it's good and dry before we move on to the next part, which is to cut out our flames. Now I like to poke a hole in the top, and then the best way I have found is to bring your scissors in from the bottom. So yeah, if you don't enjoy fussy cutting, this is probably not the card for you to remake. I don't mind fussy cutting, and I really like the end result. I think it was definitely worth it, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty frustrated with how I'm taking my hands and moving that, and it's touching the color and it's transferring onto where the white is. That, in my opinion, does make this a bit more of a dumpster fire card because it will end up really bugging me. I'm not paying much attention to it now, but eventually I start to see it, and oh my gosh, I was like, well, I've put in this much work. I'm not chucking this. We're gonna try and work with what we have. So yes, this does take a little bit of time, and I'm cutting out the pieces just because it makes it a little bit easier from time to time, but this was super simple, really. Just kind of going around those flames. And you are going to have a little bit of that white showing. I'll tell you how to help with that in just a bit if you're new to this. But look at all that red all over the place. It's, I haven't noticed it yet, but now I'm starting to see it, and it's starting to make me a little twitchy because it's a lot. And now you know why I said this was a dumpster fire of a card. Oh well. That sentiment makes me laugh. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. But look at all that red just smeared all over. I bring in a mono sand eraser, and that does help a little bit. That just kind of very lightly erases some of that color. Not all of it. The next step I try to do works really well with some colors, maybe not red, but I'm putting the water onto the color and I'm trying to pick it up with my microfiber cloth. Reds sometimes are just not that easy to pick up, but you know, it is what it is, right? Maybe we could just see those as little embers in the air. That's what I'm telling myself. All right, I bring in a Memento pen, and it's got a marker tip, and I am just kind of coming in from the back and trying to make those lines not so white and noticeable. And that does help quite a bit. You'll still see it a little bit. I probably could have done a better job, but I'm not going to lie, I was already really nervous about how much red was showing that I was afraid the marker, I was going to like move somehow and get it all over the background, and then I really was going to be like, wow, the dumpster fire that this card is. But take a look. The flame over the top, or underneath, is actually pretty cool. Now, I should have waited. I'm not going to lie to you. I should have waited to attach the flame to the back, because I end up adding more work to myself. Imagine that. What I should have done is marked this right onto my panel, or my base of the card where the flame is, and then I could have added my vellum to the back. Because now that I've attached this, I can't see exactly where I need to put those lights when I go to put this together. But it is what it is. So here we have the Easy Light. Like I said, this is a 5-pack. It has 3 lights on it, which is great. And so I've just put the battery into it, and it works fabulously. Not kind of play around with where I want those lights to go. But again, it would have been easier had I not attached the vellum down yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to attach our lights directly to the panel. Typically, I would attach them to the base, but I'm not confident that I can put it where I want them. So I'm just going to go ahead and attach this down to the panel. And I'm using some of that clear Scotch tape. That stuff works great for this. Washi tape would work too. But yeah, everything's working great, and I really like that flame. Looks pretty good. And so I'm going to have to end up holding everything in place, and we'll attach the mechanism to the base when we attach everything else. So it does take a little bit of, I don't want to say finesse. Anybody can do it. I'm showing you how you can, and it's super simple. I just made sure that my wires were kind of tucked down and out of the way. And here's my base. Before we attach anything, let's stamp the inside. And this sentiment cracks me up too. May the dumpster fire within you burn brighter than the dumpster fire around you. And then I'll stamp a couple little flies just because I love it. This sentiment, this stamp set, yeah. It makes me think of the dumpster fire that is about to be my life with another move. We are going on our 15th address in the almost 26 years that we've been married, because he's military. And believe it or not, that's actually, if somebody, in the American military stays in for 20 plus years, sometimes they have even more moves than that. It just is what it is. And it's okay. We see it as a bit of a mission field, so we enjoy what we're doing. So, all right, I am using the world's best foam tape. This stuff is fabulous because it really is the world's best. I've said this so many times. It's easy to put down, easy to cut, doesn't cause any gunk on your scissors, and the release paper comes off super simple. So I'm pulling off all the release paper, and now I've got my card base ready to go, and I'm going to use a little bit of liquid glue on the back of my mechanism, hold everything in place, and then I'm going to stick this down. Now, what makes this tape so amazing and why I feel confident that I can do this that way is that if I hadn't put it down correctly, I have about 30 minutes and I can pull that panel up without tearing anything. So that stuff is great. It's repositionable for about 30 minutes. I stamped the word push using the Pearblossom Press stamp set, trimmed it down, and then we're just going to stick it where the mechanism is. And that's going to finish off our card for today. I love how this turned out, even though it was a bit of a dumpster fire, and I hope you like it too. If you do, hit that like button. Definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. A huge thanks to all of you that stuck around and watched me get through this card and that background. I really appreciate y'all, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.